Hi, I'm Allie Jaffe, here with best-selling author Malcolm Gladwell, who's here to answer a couple questions. Thank you for coming, Malcolm.
Thank you.
So let's get started.
This is your fifth book, David and Goliath. Tell me about the process by which you kind of sort through trends and pick one that you're going to focus on for your next venture.
It's very, there is no logic to it. There is no, in fact, process is the wrong word. It's a mixture of desperation and my agent calling me and wondering what I'm doing next. I just kind of look for, when there's an idea that I find myself coming back to again and again, and that I think is sort of in the air, then I'm inclined towards it. But I often start a book without knowing where I'm going to end it. So you sort of start in the middle, and then you hope that things develop. And it's a very inefficient way of doing things, but it's all I got.
And what would you say is your media diet? You know, when you're trying to just read everything and see everything, how do you go about that?
Well, I don't really consume a lot of New York Times. I read a blog called Marginal Revolution by a guy named Tyler Cohen. I'm so addicted to it. Some running blogs. That's run.com. Grantland, various sports things. And then I read, but mostly I just read the New York Times at lunchtime.
Interesting.
On newspaper.
In your new book, David and Goliath, you talk about elite institutions and how sometimes it's a disadvantage for students that feel inadequate in such a competitive pool. What advice would you have for those students who are feeling overwhelmed?
Transfer!
Oh no!
No, I'm only slightly joking. It's not that for some students it is a disadvantage. It is understanding that elite institutions have a set of advantages and disadvantages. And so the experience of attending an elite institution is mixed, depending on who you are. There will always be things about this school that separate it positively from almost every other school in the world. There are resources here that are extraordinary, fellow students that are extraordinary, quality of faculty that's extraordinary. But there's a psychological cost to going to an elite school, which is that if you're not in the top half of your class, you can be made to feel that you are less able than you actually are. You can get disheartened. So my advice is, for those who are in that position, understand that you are being artificially placed by virtue of your decision to come here, artificially placed in an exceedingly competitive and environment, which will falsely lead you to believe that you can't do the things you need to do. And for some people, just knowing that might be enough. Others should think about, maybe this isn't the right place to be. Maybe if it is so disheartening to be made to feel incapable of doing your schoolwork, maybe you shouldn't go to an elite institution. I mean, elite institutions are by definition competitive, difficult environments, right? They wouldn't be elite if they were otherwise, and that's not for everyone.
You know, in a lot of your books, you talk about how people differentiate themselves, and in this very tough job market, what advice would you have for undergrads who are trying to stand out, who are trying to differentiate themselves?
Well, the thing that's most striking about, I think there's something has gone profoundly awry in particularly American higher education, which is that people have come to overvalue the brand name, the brand value of the institution they attend, and undervalue their own kind of personal traits. When the things that make you stand out have very little to do with where you went to college and a lot to do with who you are, what you like, your attitudes. And I just hired a an assistant, and I interviewed, 10 people. And I can't even tell you, first of all, where they went to college. I didn't even ask. One of the things I did was I said to anyone who's interested in the job to email me the next day. And I told myself I would hire the person who emailed me first. And some guy emailed me at 6:30 in the morning. I was like, job's yours. That sounds to me like the kind of person I want. So, I mean, that's what I care about, is someone who's hungry and eager and wakes up at 6:30 because he wants the job. And that sort of stuff is, to my mind, is how you stand out in the world.
And so out of curiosity, what was your first job out of college?
I worked briefly before being fired at a magazine in Bloomington, Indiana, that I had no business working at, and for which I was paid $9,000 a year. Is that all I remember? I was only there for about 5 months, and then I was fired.
Everyone talks about our generation as being the millennials. Everyone talks about different trends that are coming up. What do you kind of see as the breakthrough trend with people our age, and something that we should be aware of? And
well, I think that the thing that distinguishes your generation from mine is attitudes towards hierarchy. I am sort of the last generation that accepted hierarchical institutions as the norm. You come from a generation for whom hierarchy is not your default mode. When you think about organizations and your relationship to power, you think about things on a much more horizontal level. You're much more interested in networks than hierarchies. And that's not bad and it's not good, it's just different. There are certain things which were very difficult for people of my generation. The idea of collaboration, and which seems to come very naturally to millennials. It's difficult, more hard. But at the same time, the notion of having a boss was very natural for me. The notion of paying my dues for 8 years at newspaper was natural for me. Less natural for someone who lives in a much more distributed, collaborative, networky kind of, who grew up in that kind of environment. So it's just a matter of a different mindset, and you just need to be aware that just as the mindset I had in my generation had its upsides and downsides, so does yours.
well, thank you so much. It's great to talk to you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.